Good evening, everyone. A very big welcome and a particular big welcome to the Senior Rabbi, Alison Konya, brand new to Temple Beth Israel. And before I say anything else, I'd like to thank TBI for the use of their facilities this evening. I'd also like to make acknowledgement of country, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and show our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Anyone who is unaware of the pain inflicted on Israelis from October the 7th, after tonight will be very aware. Rabbi Vurgan will take us on a journey from paradise to hell, and hopefully from hell to a more natural living existence. I'd like to call on Brian Samuel to introduce the rabbi and sit back for what will be an amazing evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, after that brief introduction, I just wanted to give you a bit of a background over Rabbi Vurgan so that we know a little bit about the person who's going to be talking this evening. So, Rabbi Yael Vurgan grew up in a secular family in Rishon LeZion and is an accomplished leader in the field of contemporary Reform Judaism. Her professional journey has set her in pivotal roles as a manager in programs and projects esteemed institutions such as the Centre for Equality of Social Justice, etc., etc. She was ordained in 2018 by the Israeli Rabbinic Program at HUC in Jerusalem, and has been serving as the regional rabbi in the Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council since then, in partnership with local regional council. And she'll explain to you all about that background and how she's become involved. Her responsibilities include overseeing spiritual matters in what was then 10 kibbutzim near the Gaza border, impacting on the lives of thousands of residents. In addition to her role as regional rabbi, Rabbi Vurgan has demonstrated her commitment in social causes by actively participating in peace and coexistence initiatives. As a former board member of Rabbis for Human Rights, assistant to the president, assistant director, she has contributed the organisation's mission of promoting peace and justice. A proud mother of 2 boys, she's residing in Modim, and her journey from a secular upbringing to becoming an ordained rabbi exemplifies her adaptability and dedication in her chosen path. She characterised herself as the happiest rabbi in the world until October the 7th. She is now characterised as a pillar of spiritual solace. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Rabbi Vurgan to the microphone.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Rabbi Cantor of this beautiful synagogue, for having us here tonight. Thank you, Philip Bliss, and the whole UPJ for bringing me here from really, really far away. And thank you for much wider than that, for all the support that I'm getting, that me and my colleagues in Israel are getting from you, that enables the work that I'm going to tell you about now to happen. And so I landed in Sydney on a Friday morning from literally the other end of the world. And immediately I felt at home, and I feel very much at home here with you this evening. I feel among family. We are brothers and sisters. And although we live so far away from each other, I'm going to treat you, with your permission, as my partners. And at the end of my presentation, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the ways in which we can partner to work together for our shared mutual homeland in Israel, which I'm sure you care about a lot. So thanks for coming, and I will share with you both images and words about the work that I do in Israel, which is very unique rabbinic work. It's not anything similar to, I think, what the rabbis are doing here, although of course there are similar things, but it's completely different. And thank you, Brian, for mentioning my secular upbringing. Why is that so important? Because I keep surprising myself, and life keeps surprising me. I couldn't imagine I would become a rabbi when I grew up. Nothing in my childhood or youth even indicated that. And that's because when you grow up in Israel, you are either secular going to a secular school, or you are an Orthodox going to a religious school, and that's it. When I grew up in the 70s and 80s of last century, these were basically the options. Today, there's a little bit of mixed schools for kids to know kids from other backgrounds, but the whole education system in Israel is really, really segregated in a way that, I grew up secular, not knowing a single religious Jew until I reached the army service, in which I finally met some young people my age, serving the same unit as me, who grew up Orthodox. And that was fascinating, and my eyes kind of opened to the fact that there is another way of Jewish existence than the one I know. And you know that secular Israelis, being the majority in Israel, are very well aware of their Jewish identity, but they just don't give it a lot of intention, because it's just right up there in the air. You don't need to even go to synagogue to feel Jewish or to be a part of a community. You just walk the streets, and the Jewish calendar is all over the place, right? They start selling heavily cleaning materials 2 weeks before Pesach, and then you cannot know, or selling hamantashans or donuts before Hanukkah. And so it's all out there all the time. The vacations go. So really, secular Jews in Israel don't do a lot actively to kind of feel their Jewish identity. They're just very sure of it, and so was I. But when I was exposed to the option of being, living a deeper interest in the Jewish identity and all this spiritual world of text and music, and I was really charmed by it. And from that time on, meaning after I finished my army service and until that very day, I went on this journey of finding my Jewish identity, and it's a long way from where I was brought up, and my family, believe me, until today, they're not really quite sure what I'm doing. But it's a long way to become a Reform rabbi, so it took me many, many years of learning a lot of Jewish studies in both university and out of university, and to decide that my identity would be a progressive Jewish identity, which means, you heard before, I'm also socially an activist, and so when I found the Israeli Reform movement, it was a surprise for me. I didn't know it existed when I grew up. And then I realized that here's a place where I can be me, and I don't have to give up either my social and human rights intentions, and not my spiritual search for Jewish identity. So both of these things can act really genuinely live together, and I don't have to give up any part of my personality. So from that minute on, that's it. I am a Reform rabbi in Israel. And the day I was ordained, here again, another surprise, because I was imagining myself like I'm standing right here in a beautiful synagogue and on the little bima and talking to the crowd. And so when the Israeli Reform movement, after my ordination, when I was in between jobs, came to me and said, how about you go down to the Negev and work in a regional area? You'll be a regional council rabbi. And I said, I don't know. That's not what I was thinking about. I wanted to be like a regular, normal rabbi. And I didn't even know what it means to be a regional rabbi. It's kind of weird. And I didn't know anything about this area. Like, I'm pretty sure most of you're not sure where Sha'ar Negev is, right? I mean, it's a nice name. It means the gate to the Negev, but where is it? And what does it look like? And who are the people who are living there? I knew nothing about this. And there was no other rabbi living closer to the south of Israel. Most of us, rabbis, there are more than 100 ordained Israeli rabbis, Reform rabbis, who were ordained by the HUC in Jerusalem. Some of them are not working as community rabbis, but most of them are. And so all of us are either in the center of Israel or in the north of Israel. And eventually I said yes, okay. And I wasn't really sure where it's going to take me. And I'm standing here today, 5.5 years after that decision, blessing, this decision and saying, and really, you're right, all the years when I was asked to describe my weird, awkward position, a rabbinic position, I would say, yeah, it's weird, but it's so beautiful, and I'm in love, and I'm happy as rabbi. And really, after October 7th, I'm still in love with my people, but feeling very broken and bereaved with them, and hoping to go through a journey of healing together with them. So, if it's okay with you, I want to start showing you a little bit so you would understand why I'm in love with my congregants and the area. It's really, really very special. But before that, I'll just say another sentence to explain what I said. Why is this such a weird rabbinic position? Because again, it's not synagogue-based. So people ask me when I tell them I'm a rabbi, I say, so where's your synagogue? I don't have a synagogue. I might have one day, by the way, but a regional synagogue. But so far what I was doing is that I was driving between those 10 kibbutzim in my region, sometimes some other places out of my region, and give them services, okay, and do things in cooperation with the kibbutzim. But it's not just in this one center, and also you have to understand, none of them signed up to be a congregant or a member of a Reform community, okay? So they know I'm a Reform rabbi, but they're just secular Israelis who might want and might look for a connection to Jewish tradition. They're a little afraid, as secular Jews in Israel, many of them do, from something that will be too religious and might oppose something on them that they don't want, which happens in Israel because the dominancy of the Orthodox stream is not really enabling a lot of freedom for secular Jews, freedom of religion. And so they're kind of rejecting everything that smells like religion. And so when I come into those kibbutzim and I suggest that we'll have some meaningful Jewish spiritual ceremonies and events, and like I have to be smart and careful and gentle and creative and flexible to be able to buy their trust and to have them cooperate with me. And this job is all about creating a lot of personal connections, a lot of cooperation with the people in the kibbutzim, so I can come in and do the activity in the kibbutz. Each kibbutz is a community. They don't need me. They're a life community. They live together. And they don't need me to organize a community. What they need me for is to bring content that nobody else would bring. And that enables them to connect to tradition in a way that is not threatening them and they feel comfortable with. So I have to be, again, being a secular person myself, I really understand them, I respect their way of life, I'm not trying to make them change, I just want to tell them, look, we have this treasure of a Jewish tradition, let's see if you can get something to your life, inspiration and, you know, deep content and connection from that. And you know what? It works. It works, and I'll show you, okay? So my weird congregation is called Sha'ar HaNegev. That means the gate to the Negev. And that's why, because it's in the north. You know, Negev is 60% of Israel's, territory, okay? So it's a big, big territory. There is another rabbi, the only rabbi working in the south other than me is in Beersheba, and then we have, which is far from where I am, and then there is, next to Eilat, 2 Reform kibbutzim that also have a rabbi. We are the only ones working in the south. It's huge territory. And so Sha'ar HaNegev is the northern part of the Negev. It's like when you just enter the Negev, okay? And I want to show you, I want to start by showing you the symbol, the logo of my congregation, which I didn't make. I inherited it when I started working. There was a former rabbi in the area, also named Yael, and then she left, and it took the movement a little while to find another one that will be able to go there. And so she showed me this, and you know what? I learned to love it. And you see, it says Kehilat Sha'ar HaNegev, the community of Sha'ar HaNegev, and there's this red, gentle, small, fragile flower. Took me forever to learn the English name for it. In Hebrew, it's called kalanit, and in English, so I learned, it's called anemone. Am I right? Yeah, it's like a poppy seed, but a little different. So, how come the anemone flower became the symbol of my congregation? Why is that? Riddle. Think about it. We'll get there. Okay? Another thing you should know now. So, I'm employed by the Israeli Reform movement. But really, where I work is in the municipality of Sha'ar HaNegev, which again is an area, it's a region with 10 kibbutzim. And I work in cooperation, in really good cooperation with the municipality. And this is the municipality's logo, all right? So what do you see in that logo? We see a field. It could be wheat, it could be potatoes, it could be carrots, it could be anything. But there is a field that we know people are working the land, and then in the background, in the blue, that's the kibbutz, okay? So that logo tells you that, of course, not all the residents of the area work in agriculture, but the agriculture is still a symbol. For those people, for those secular kibbutzim population, the connection with the land is really important. And they love the land. Some of them, the generation, the more senior generation who maybe founded the kibbutzim or their next generation, some of them, they work this land for 60 or 70 years, right? It's their life project. And they're really, again, some people would have other jobs out of the kibbutz, but the kibbutz is really cares about working the land. And so it earned the nickname of being the breadbasket of Israel. And they're growing a lot of wheat, and they're growing other things. And I always say the story of how when I come to a certain kibbutz and do a ceremony, and they want to give me a gift to take back home, sometimes they will give me like a bag of garlic or carrots or avocado, or all the stuff that they grow. And it's really nice how, this is giving something from their heart. This is where their heart is. They love the fields. And so me, growing up in cities all my life and living in cities all my life, when I started working in the area, I think the residents recognized that I don't know anything about this essence, and they told me, you have to come and see our Shavuot ceremony. And so for these people, Shavuot is a very Jewish holiday, but it's not about a synagogue. They don't go to synagogue on Shavuot, right? And most of them. And they don't do services, and they don't even relate so much to the fact that later on in our Jewish history, Shavuot became Chag Matan Torah. The sages decided that this is the time we received the Torah and that we're celebrating it. You know what? For them, Shavuot is still what it was in biblical times. What was it? The harvest celebration. And until that very day, they're doing the same thing that we read about in the Torah, that Shavuot is when you cut the wheat and you're celebrating and rejoicing the fact that you get bread out of the land. And so when I came, I took so many pictures because I couldn't believe how beautiful. So they're making this gate where all the kibbutz is going from the kibbutz to the field, and it says Shavuot on the top. And then you have all the families, hundreds of people sitting out in the field, and they bring all the machines to display how they actually cut the wheat, going like that, and it's huge, and it's so impressive. I was, for the first time seeing that, I was really, really impressed. And it's just beautiful, and it's just moving really to see the connection to the people, to the land, and also the sense of community. The whole community is there together celebrating it. Remember the riddle? Why is the red flower, the anemone flower, the symbol of the area? Because in the summer, of course, the area looks yellow because then the wheat is yellow and everything is dry. But if you have been going there last month, February, this is what it looks like. It's this 1 month every year that the area is completely covered with green because it's after the rain. And exactly at the beginning of February every year, they start coming up. And sometimes it could look like that. And so it's really beautiful. And people from all over Israel come to, lie down on this rug and take flowers and all of that. And I want to tell you one more thing about it, but I'll do it by commemorating, together with you, the memory of the mayor of Sha'ar HaNegev, Ophir Liebstein, Zichro Livracha. He was one of the first people to be murdered on that horrible Saturday morning, Simchat Torah. It was supposed to be Simchat Torah, right? So he was the mayor for 5.5 years. We started together. When I started working, he just began to be the mayor of the area. He lives in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. He had 4 kids. One of them was murdered as well. And Ophir Liebstein, other than just being a wonderful, sweet person, was also a very good friend of the progressive Judaism in Israel. And he was a pluralistic. He loved the fact that he has a Reform rabbi. Actually, this region doesn't even have an Orthodox rabbi, so he would treat me as the rabbi of the region and cooperated wonderfully with me, with our activity. He would come to the activities and greet the people and say how happy he is that there is a Jewish progressive activity in the area. Just a wonderful, wonderful man. He was also a man of peace. He had a vision that I was so proud of him for telling it to every group coming. Like if you come to visit the area when he was alive, he would take you to Kibbutz Erez and show you the area of the Erez crossing and tell you that he knows Gaza is a threat to the area, but he really understands that most of the people, of the 2-point-something million living in Gaza, needs food to eat. And so he planned this huge industrial area to be in the Erez crossing for thousands of Gaza people, workers to come and work every day. And he was really proud of that vision. I don't know what's going to happen with it now. But I'm just telling you this to say he was a very sensitive person. He really took good care of his residents, and he was afraid that there would be attacks. But on the other hand, he has this humanity way of looking at reality, understanding that it's for our good and safety that the people of Gaza will have work and food to eat. So that was Ophir Liebstein. And why I'm showing you the picture now is because Ophir has initiated also being a part of Kakal, initiated this festival. So he had this idea, and every year it happened that during the month of February, when the area looks like that, he had created a huge festival called Darom Adom, the Red South, right? And so people would come, and every weekend there will be shows and fairs and tours and many activities in the area. And so if you come to visit the area of Sha'ar HaNegev, the gate to the Negev, you would hear people relating to the color red and saying, this is the good red, and then we have the bad red, which is, I don't know if you know that, but in the areas that are closest to the Gaza border, when there is a rocket attack, the alarm doesn't go wee wee like it usually does in other places. It says the words Tseva Adom, Tseva Adom. That's how it sounds like. I experienced it a few times. It's really scary. And then you have to run to a shelter. If you're at your house, you go to the safe room. If you're outside on even the road or one of the kibbutz paths, you have to run to the closest, like outside little shelters called migunit, and you have just a few seconds. If you are in the closest kibbutz to the fence, you have like 3 seconds. If you're a little further, you have 7 seconds. So people are getting used to walking in the kibbutz path and saying, if there will be alarm now, which shelter am I running to? There's one at the end of this part, and this is how their head works. They got so used to it. Okay, so good red and bad red. So red is meaningful, and also you were talking about heaven and hell, and that's why, because the people before October 7th, when presenting, they love their area. They're in love with their area, so it's unbelievable that it suffers so much from security problems, and still the waiting list for people to live in those kibbutzim. They don't have enough housing for everyone who wants to live there. These are small communities, so the bigger kibbutz is like 900 people. The smaller is like 500 people. These are really small communities, border communities. And so they would tell you, yeah, we live 95% in heaven and 5% hell. And that's kind of turned upside down on October 7th. And so now I'm showing you, if you're not sure exactly where it is, it's okay, don't worry. I wasn't sure as well before I started working there. But now I know, so I can tell you, seeing the Gaza Strip. And so, right, like from this point on starts the Negev, and you see Beersheba is further out here. Can you see that? All right. And then my area is right around the city of Sderot. Sderot is right there, but it's not a part of, it has its own municipality. And the municipality of Sha'ar HaNegev has the 10 kibbutzim from Erez to Nachal Oz. There's some that their names don't appear here, but they're in this area, Givim, Nir'am, Or HaNer. And look at these Mefalsim, Kfar Aza, Nachal Oz. Nachal Oz is the closest. It's like 800 meters from the fence, that's it. And Kfar Aza, 1 kilometer from the fence. And Mefalsim, also, you see the proximity right here. And then from this point down south, there's a huge region, so it's a neighbor region. I get to work there a little bit, but not a lot. It's called Eshkol. So many of the other names you might have heard of kibbutzim that got attacked are from Eshkol. So here's Be'eri, Re'im, where the party was, Kisufim, I had a bat mitzvah there. And so it's until really the Egypt border, it's a huge, huge region. It's desert, you can drive a long time before you get somewhere. And then all this purple area is all where the terrorist has actually reached on October 7th. So they reached really far. Ofakim is far, all the way to there. And you can see the area of the invasion. You have questions so far, or is this kind of clear? All right. And so what I do in every day before October 7th was just driving from my home in Modi'in, where I live. I don't live in the area. Commuting about an hour, driving, reaching the area of my kibbutzim. And I have meetings and I have events in each kibbutz. So Kabbalat Shabbat every Friday is a different kibbutz. I don't see the same people all the time. It's every time different people. But altogether, I think I met hundreds of the residents of the area during all these events. I officiate funerals. I make, of course, bar and bat mitzvahs, and so I get to meet a lot of... And remember how I told you when I grew up, I didn't even know there was an option of progressive Judaism. So I felt, my passion was to make progressive Judaism accessible for the people living in the ends of Israel, the periphery, because you know Israel, right? If you live in Tel Aviv, or in Jerusalem, or even where I live, in Modi'in, or in Ra'anana, you have many options of synagogues, of services. You can have everything is accessible. What if you live on the north border with Lebanon, or if you live right here? Do you even have options? And I think that the Israeli Reform movement have done this brilliant move that a lot of people didn't understand at that time, about a decade ago, starting to send us rabbis to do this awkward rabbinic role by going to all the ends and the periphery of Israel and serving people who otherwise will not ever have a chance to be exposed to that. And so thanks to that move, today, the Israeli Reform movement have 53 or 54 congregations all over Israel. 13 out of them are in this model of a regional rabbinate or a regional area, progressive work, which is amazing. That means we really reach a population that would never, come to one of our big, they're not there. We're serving population that otherwise would have no accessibility to this. And I think it's beautiful, and we meet beautiful people. And now I'm back to my area to show you. I took this picture out of Kibbutz Kfar Aza, looking towards the Gaza Strip. So those kibbutzim, you enter them from the eastern side, but when you cross them, you reach the west side fence, and this is what it looks like. So you see there's just a field out there, and that's it. That's the border. It's really close, and I think this is one of the gates that got broken on October 7th. And here is another way of looking at it. You see how close it is. You can almost see eye to eye with the Sajaiyan people, Sajaiyan neighborhood of the city of Gaza. And now, with your permission, introducing you to some figures. I just look at him and my heart is filled with love. I love this person. He's Dani. He lives in Kibbutz Nachal Oz. He became my partner to do all the activity in Nachal Oz because he loves progressive Judaism. He grew up actually quite traditional, but he later on found the beauty of progressive Reform Judaism, and he's just my partner to do everything. So he lives in the kibbutz many, many years, and he worked on the field, on the agriculture, and then he became the spokesman of the kibbutz. So even before October 7th, much before, all those 5 years, many groups come. I insist that reform groups coming from abroad to Israel would not only visit the Kotel and Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, they would also come to our communities in the periphery. And so whenever there's a group coming, Dani would take them to the fence. We had this little bus tour in the kibbutz, and he explains to them, and he's proud how sophisticated, millions of dollars were invested in a very sophisticated electric fence on top of the ground, and then there's all these 3-kilometer concrete, I don't know how much, under the ground to prevent those, what do you call them, tunnels, right? And I remember how he was really thinking, and he was really telling people, we feel secure thanks to that fence, which all this conception that fence can really give us security collapsed that day because this very sophisticated fence was broken by half an hour. Okay, no problem, just a tractor going on it. So we don't understand how is that possible, but I think there's a much deeper conception that kind of failed that day, and we might talk about it after. I'm talking a lot, but don't worry, I'm going to stop talking at some minute, and then we have a conversation, and you get to ask questions and say whatever you want. So we can talk later about what failed, what broke at that day, because I think it's much deeper than just the fence and it's not a physical thing. It's like the whole idea of what gives us security. Okay? Again, Dani, and this is one of our regular Kabbalot Shabbat, that, as you see, it's not a synagogue. We're sitting in the members club of the kibbutz, right? Every kibbutz has this member club. It's just a hall. And it's very informal. We sit in a circle. There's no bima. And the no bima that I have, the one that I don't have, I'm also really happy. I'm thrilled, actually, to clear it, to have some of my congregants talk instead of me. And so, see, he's sitting with a chumash, and he's saying the Dvar Torah on the weekly parsha for the week. He loves doing that. There are other people in that kibbutz. So I really try to have it a more community. It's not a show, although I do have a musician. We sing a lot of songs. Also, you have to understand the Kabbalat Shabbat in the kibbutz is not called a service, God forbid, because that will chase them away. So we just call it Kabbalat Shabbat, and we have a lot of Israeli classic songs, and we do have some traditional Chadodi and all of that, and Yedid Nefesh. They love it. And then we talk about Parashat Shavua, and sometimes if it's not too many people, we even might be going around and I have them say something about any topic that we're talking about. So it's a very communal, intimate event. But it's lovely and they love it. And I love how Danny gives the Dvar Torah. And he's just really a sweet person. And here's another cute event. The picture is not in good quality, but I love it, so I put it here. So this is Danny's daughter, Karin, and that's her partner, Naama, and they're about to get married, so it's the first lesbian wedding in Kibbutz Nachal Oz. They were married by the poolside. And this is just a week or two before, and we're reading them under the talit during a Pride Kabbalat Shabbat. And Naama actually comes from an Orthodox family. And her parents did accept her identity, but she always felt like she's either like living a meaningful Jewish life and being obligated to some kind of a Jewish, rituals, or she's LGBT, right? She felt that it doesn't work together. And when she found out that there is a Jewish way that is inclusive and that is accepting her to be a part of it and also celebrating the diversity, she was happy to tears. And then she became my partner. That's a little bit after, so we have a baby, and Danny is a proud grandfather. And Naama became my partner to do Pride Kabbalot Shabbat in the kibbutzim, which is really radical for them. And so she knows the community. She brings the people. She advertises. She decorates the place. And I just come with my musician and I bring the songs and the words and we do it. And it's just lovely and beautiful. And again, I'm telling you, these are the sweetest people. And they come straight into your heart. You can't resist falling in love. And they're just the wonderful, wonderful people. And another event, it really breaks my heart to look at this now, because this was a Hanukkah event in the members club of Kfar Aza, which was completely destroyed in the attack. And for a couple of years so Nurit is my partner to do activities in Kfar Aza, and she calls me before holidays and say, what are we going to do for Hanukkah? And I tell her, how about we do this interfaith candle lighting? And she never heard of such a thing. She says, fine, sounds interesting. And I say, no problem. So I have my friends from the Interfaith Forum in the South, which I joined when I started working there. And so this is Sheikh Hassan, as is for Rahat. It's the Bedouin, neighbor city to Sha'ar HaNegev. And there's Father, what's his name, Roman from a church in Beersheba, and there's Radir Hani, she's a Muslim activist, well known in the south of Israel, wonderful woman, very smart. And it was really easy. We come together, we light the candles, each one of us religious leaders talking about whatever topic we choose. Is it like light in our tradition, or could be what do we think about miracles in our, whatever it has to do with Hanukkah. And it was just lovely and beautiful, and many, many people attended, and they were really curious about it. And they came to me after, the kibbutzniks who came from all the area to this event, saying, you know what, we never actually heard a person of another religion speak like a spiritual leader, which is something we're really bad at in Israel, living among non-Jews, celebrating the diversity, having Israelis listen to peoples from other religions and other cultures talk and teach about. We're really not good in doing this. This is something we can learn from you, I think, a lot. And I bring it to this periphery area, and it's wonderful. It's here's another picture. It was really lovely, and it was all new to them. And I'm proud that now the residents of this area know that you can actually have a spiritual relationship with people from other religions. And so, of course, I have a lot of activities with the kids and the schools and the kindergartens, but what I want to show you now is an event that I was dreaming about for many years, And I got to actually fulfill this dream on October 3rd, okay, on Chol HaMoed Sukkot. And what is it? So you see this lovely group of people, seniors. It's a late bar and bat mitzvah to those people, except Danny, which is about in his 70s, most of them are 80 and up, and they never had a bar mitzvah. So Yoki, he's from Kibbutz Gevim. I just love this person. He comes to all of my events. He loves studying, he loves singing. Everything I do, he comes. And then at some point he told me, he never had a bar mitzvah because it was Independence War when he got to be 13, and they couldn't have the bar mitzvah. And then his friend Igal on the left, also 87 or something, his family was too secular. He grew up in a very secular environment, and they didn't do an Aliyah LaTorah. I'm not talking about a party, talking about traditional reading Torah and all of that. And so I immediately jumped because and say, let's do it now, it's never too late. And then their wives joined us, and another woman, and Dani. And of course, the women never had a bat mitzvah of Aliyah Torah because they just never had, right? And then we learned for 3 months in the regional senior club, which is beautiful. I cooperate with that club a lot. They invite me every holiday. These seniors love me and love the activity. And so we meet there, and I teach them to read Torah. They had no idea of anything. And I just taught them how to read Torah, and we talked about the Parsha, and we learned. And then we got the event actually going on. So this is October 3rd, Chol HaMoed Sukkot. We Dafka did it towards Simchat Torah. We thought, right, I'm connecting them to Torah, so it's appropriate to do it right before Simchat Torah. And we wanted their grandchildren to be on vacation from school so they can attend the event, and all the families came and their friends came. You can't see this, but there are a lot of people in the hall, and everybody's really, really rejoicing with them. And I already got the people saying, I'm coming from the next cohort, whatever. And so we were rejoicing, and after that we went out to the sukkah, and we took this picture, and the sign says, V'samachta b'chagecha, you rejoice in your holiday. And indeed, we're really happy, not thinking or not knowing what's coming up. And that's it. That was my last event before October 7th in the area, which I was really happy about. And then after October 7th, I couldn't reach the area. I was in my house in Modi'in, and it became a war zone, and so the roads were closed. I couldn't even go there physically. It's much later, when they finally opened the road, I could drive by that regional senior club, and I looked at the sukkah, and it was like falling and broken, and it was a symbol, right, of what broke and how happy we were before. And then on October 7th, I was supposed to officiate another bar mitzvah, this time of a boy, 13-year-old, in one of the moshavim in the area. And since it was like a mincha bar mitzvah, I wasn't really planning to get up very early in the morning. And then my phone started ringing at about 7 o'clock, and it's the mother of the bar mitzvah, and I had no idea. And she asked me, are you aware of what's going on? And I say, no, what's going on? She talks about these rocket attacks. Now you have to understand, the people in this area, unfortunately, it's really sad, but they're so used to rocket attacks. So they would go into the safe room, stay there a little, and come out, and life goes on. They don't make a fuss out of this. But everybody was saying, this time we feel it's different because it didn't stop. It was boom, 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 more and more. It was really strong, and it was constant, and they couldn't even leave the safe room since 6:30 in the morning. And so being far away was very frustrating, and I tried to understand what was going on. At the beginning, people didn't realize how severe the event is. Until 8:30, we already got a WhatsApp message on the death of Ophir, the mayor, that was also a part of the civil defense group that every kibbutz had. And they immediately, understanding that there are, the terrorists didn't only come through the fences, they also had these kites coming. I don't know how you call this, but it's like, what is it? Yeah, gliders, exactly. They were coming. So the kibbutznik that are living closest to the fence kind of called their team, the defense team of the kibbutz, saying, we see all these gliders, come quickly to the armory to get the weapon, we have to protect the kibbutz. And Ophir was leaving his house, and he got shot right out of his house going to meet his friends to fight the terrorists. And so at some point in the morning, it was clear that something completely different than the usual is happening. And from that minute on, being not there physically, having just this far, spiritual kind of role in their lives, I'm not, I'm not a fighter in the kibbutz. I'm just somebody who knows them and who they so generously open their communities and their hearts to me. I gone crazy, not being able to be there, trying to collect information, calling many, many people, all the contacts. I have dozens and hundreds of contacts in my phone, and most of them couldn't answer the phone. They didn't have receivers at some point. They didn't have electricity. They were all in the safe rooms for hours. Sometimes I would be corresponding with people that are in the safe rooms, and they write, we hear shooting outside of our house, we hear shooting in the house, we hear shooting out of the window of the safe room. People were holding the handle of the safe room, which cannot usually be locked because it's meant for rockets, not for terrorists coming in. But people were just holding, sometimes that saved their lives, if they could hold strong enough the handle of the door and not let the terrorists in. And so I just get these reports, and because I was working in the area for 5 years already, I had many personal connections, and this is why people would even answer me or react or update me on what's going on. And it took days and hours, and again, some of my residents, they were in the safe room for 20 hours, 30 hours, it was just unbelievable how long. And then at some point, when the army finally arrived, after many, many hours, the army was not there at the beginning, and they were all alone. So at some point, the army started rescue the people out of their safe rooms and out of the kibbutz and sending them to evacuation centers. And so from that minute on, I started driving not only to the south that I'm used to, but all over Israel. Some of the kibbutzim from my area were evacuated to Tiberias and to other kibbutzim in the Galil. Some of them evacuated to Mitzpe Ramon, way in the south, and some to Tel Aviv and Herzliya. And so I had to kind of drive all over to visit them. And in the first week, it was really hard to even go there and meet them. I was kind of afraid to go. Of what am I going to meet, and people were still collecting information, who's alive, who's hostage. At the beginning it was such chaos, there were no, today we know all the list by heart, but at the beginning, I'm telling you, the first week, chaotic completely, people still asking each other, where have you been and where's your family, where's everyone, and going to, Kfar Aza. We didn't know that at that point, but now I can tell you they had 65 people murdered out of a population of 900, and all the region had 87 people killed. It took time before we had the final list. Also took a long time to identify some of the bodies. Some of the houses were burnt with the bodies inside. Took over a month to be able to, of course, it's not just my region, it's the whole area, to identify all of the bodies. And on those weeks, to go to those evacuation centers and to meet the people and to just sit and listen to their stories, horrible. And me asking myself also, what is my role? What can I do? And I kept asking people, can I do something? And somebody just told me, I remember one woman said, listen, nothing to do. That's what happened. You have to realize there's nothing to do right now. Okay? And so really I had nothing to do other than suggesting my kind of, spiritual support and consultants, and just sit with people for hours, listen to their stories again and again and again. Going to the hotels where they're evacuated, sitting in the lobby. I didn't even make appointments. People will just come up and tell me their stories. And so I was not talking a lot like I do now. I was quiet and I was absorbing all the information and all their experience, and people told me, if you haven't been there, even if you're really trying hard, you cannot understand what it's like to be locked in your safe room for 20 or 30 hours, hearing all these battles outside, but not really knowing what's going on. And realizing after that all your neighbors are killed or hostage, except somehow they skipped your house and you're lucky to survive. And so all these stories kept coming. And then started the period of the funerals, which took a few weeks until we buried all of them. And what you see on the left is a heartbreaking picture, because when you go into the lobby of Kibbutz Shfaim, where Kfar Aza were evacuated to, this kibbutz has a nice hotel, so you would normally just come to check in with your family for vacation, but now it's a huge refugee camp, and now they're burying their friends who got killed, and so you come into the lobby and there's this flip chart saying Levayot Yom Dalet, so these are the funerals of Wednesday, and then every day there's like 10 of them until they finished burying all of their friends. And this was one of the, I didn't officiate a lot of them, but I did officiate some of those funerals. I did many of them before, but it was always just this one person, and usually from the senior generation. And this time, nothing prepared you to the fact that these funerals, most of them were of more than one person. So this is of a couple that were killed together, not so old, married couple, and sometimes it's a parent with a child, or in the worst cases, it's a whole family. It was just a terrible period where I would ask the people, how are you, what's going on? And they say, you know, we're just going from one funeral to another. And even if you don't live in that kibbutz, you know people from that kibbutz, because the whole region is 9,000 residents. The kids go to the same regional school, and they're married in between the kibbutzim, so they all know everyone. And so all the residents were just mourning 24 hours, 24/7. While doing all that, I was wondering, am I going to continue to have Kabbalot Shabbat? Are they even going to want that? I didn't know. I definitely didn't initiate it. But this is October 13th, so it's the first Friday after the event. And I was surprised to get a phone call from people from Kibbutz Gevim that are evacuated to another kibbutz called Mizra in the north of Israel. And they're still in shock and shaking and grieving, but they wanted Kabbalat Shabbat. So immediately I said, yes, of course, and I grabbed some musician and we went up there. And see, it's like organized last minute, it's very informal, we're sitting outside, it's still summer, and the kids are running around and playing on the grass and laughing because they're kids, and their parents and the older people are, you know, crying, and from different, you know, everybody has their own experience, but, you know, I remember I told you before, they don't really want services, right? It's not really a tefillah, it's a, but on this Kabbalat Shabbat, I can never forget this. I went home after that, I drove for an hour and 15 minutes shaking from excitement, because every song we sang, every word, even if it's just an Israeli song, if it's Lu Yehi or Nomi Shemer, right? Al Kol Ele, just every word felt like prayer. It has the quality of prayer. People really needed something to hold on to. You know, they say that when you're traumatized, you lose your ability to find the words. You don't have words to describe your experience. And so I think that this was a gift for these people, because it gave them the words to deal with what they went through. And it's just a little drop in the ocean of grief and suffering. But for this 1 hour, we created this bubble of a community and comfort and praying and hugging together. And so from that minute, I just did it every Friday in a different place in Israel. When all the hostages activities started, at the beginning, you know, they weren't organized yet. But then at some point, you know how there's the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv? Did you hear about it? So it's a museum square that became the Hostages Square. Unfortunately, still there. I hoped by the time I come here, we won't need the square anymore. I really, really hoped that would be the case. And I can't believe I'm standing here and it's the middle of March and the Hostages Square is still the Hostages Square. So this is another Kabbalat Shabbat in another hotel where Kibbutz Mefalsim is evacuated. You can see how kind of chaotic it all is, but that's what it was, and it was always very emotional and very powerful. And then at some point, the whole hostages issue became a very central thing, and I started to collect the information, who of my congregants has hostages in the family. And one of the women, I just realized that her daughter and granddaughter were hostages. Tami is from Nahal Oz. She always comes to the Kabbalot Shabbat and to every activity we do because she loves Jewish learning, and she, from a very secular standpoint, but she's this tough kibbutznik, and she would always tell me, you didn't mention that, and what about that? And she always has something to say, and she really was very active in our activities. And then I found out that her daughter and granddaughter, who actually are American citizens from Illinois or something like that, and they were just visiting. They don't live in the kibbutz. They came because it was holiday, and it was her birthday. They came to celebrate her 86th birthday. And so they were staying in this guest unit, and the kibbutz sometimes give the guests. They weren't with her, and she found out that they were abducted. And then she started all this operation to bring them back. I think that they were the first to be released, and maybe thanks to the fact that they're American citizens, there was a lot of connections and pressure that was put on their release. But what I want to tell you is that from the standpoint of a rabbi, I was really, all I wanted is that she would let me visit her and tell me the story, and I will be involved in that. She didn't answer the phone for many weeks, and I kind of had to chase her. She said, no, I don't have time. And at the end, I did come to her, and it was that Friday that we sat together for hours, and she told me all the stories. She showed me poems that she's writing on little notes. And I told her, Tami, this is really good. Can I publish it to the community? And she gave me her permission. Later on, I found out that for many, actually women, more than men maybe, the tool of writing your experience, some wrote like a war memorial, like every day they would write a paragraph about how they're doing in this wherever hotel they're evacuated to. Some wrote poems and sent it to me, and they're really good stuff, and I publish it. So I found out here's another way that I can maybe help them. And so I told her, Tami, let's pray together. And we sat together, we cried, we prayed, and that evening, a few hours after I left her, we got the message that they were released. So these were really powerful experiences that I had with the people, supporting them, being with them in those horrible and very dramatic hours and days. And then we started getting groups from diaspora Jews coming to Israel on those mission, delegations, coming solidarity delegations. And I really wanted them to not just hear me. I really wanted even to bring one of the residents to this visit, but they didn't allow, the UPJ didn't allow it. I wanted to snuggle someone in my suitcase. So you really get to hear these people, okay? So when people come to Israel, I say, come to me, let's go to where Nahal Oz are evacuated to, another kibbutz in the north. Let's drive there and you hear the people. And so, see, here's Sergio Bergman from the World Union for Progressive Judaism, and there's a group from all over the world. And here's Tami. She's happy because this is after they're released, and she's telling the story. And this is just one of a lot of these that we had. And it was a big headache for me to coordinate all these. It wasn't easy all the time to get the residents to talk to people, but I did notice how important it is, not just for the visitors to hear firsthand testimonies, but also for my people. And they really expressed it. They said, it's really warming our heart to see that Jews from all around the world really care about us, and they fly and they drive all this way to hear our stories. So they were really moved, and I realized it's something that is actually helping them. So I should make the effort to have, even I remember one delegation when one of the residents of Nahal Oz were talking to the people, and he said, you know what, the reform movement had already brought 6 delegations here, and no government representative stepped foot in this kibbutz. Okay, so he was saying, thank you for coming, because nobody else of the government is relating to us and talking to us, and you come here again and again to show your support and your solidarity and to listen to us, and they're really moved by it. So we did a lot of these, and then we take pictures, and it says on the sign, Nachal Oz habayit sheli, Nachal Oz is my home. And again, I'm emphasizing how these people are not just living there. It's their home, and in the deepest way possible. They're connected to the place in a way that I never felt connected to any of the apartments that I lived in, okay? They're really they can't imagine themselves living anywhere else, okay? They love their kibbutzim. And so, again, remember I told you about the lobby of the hotel? Later on, when you go into the lobby, boom, in your face, you got this huge black sign with all the hostages' names of that kibbutz, Kfar Aza. Of course, we have many more, but these are the 19 that were blacked out from that certain kibbutz. Every kibbutz is a very tight community, so it's like one big family. And then when the hostages started coming back in the last deal we had, they put the sticker next to the names, the round white sticker saying Kfar Aza habayit sheli, my home. And so the red dots are the ones that are still there, although this is not updated because Alon and Yotam are the two hostages that got mistakenly shot by the IDF soldiers, and so they're back, but they're back not alive. And this is the moment where I want to turn your attention to this sign, which it was really, really important to me to bring it here. Of course, these are not all the hostages, but these are the hostages of Sha'ar HaNegev, my region. So there's 7 left, 5 from Kfar Aza and 2 from Nachal Oz. And remember the enemy that is the symbol of the area. So now you see on the left corner on the top, the municipality have made it like a bleeding flower. And I hope that as fast as possible, it would just be the flower again and it won't bleed. But I have to tell you, I don't know how can I can't exaggerate on the importance of this issue. This for the people, for the residents of my area, and for myself, and for many other Israelis. This is first priority. Period. And the people of those kibbutzim have lost so much. They lost so many friends and neighbors and family members. Some of them lost their houses completely and everything they had, okay? And they can't lose more. So they keep saying, if these people are not back, we are not going to be able to recover. And it's going to be a terrible stain on the Jewish state if they can't bring back the hostages. And so it's 160 days today that there are in Gaza, which is unbelievable, unbearable. And I just wanted to tell the names. I couldn't get an English sign, so I will just translate it to you. It says on the top, Ze lo shalem biladehem. So it means it's not whole without them. And so the municipality is going with this to all the demonstrations. And on the right-hand side, it's Ziv and Gali Berman. These are twin brothers on their 20s. And here is Emily. And this is Doron. And they belong to the young adult group of Kfar Aza, which had their own neighborhood because the kibbutz gives these little apartments to people coming out of the army service, going back to the kibbutz. So they don't live with their parents anymore. They go and have their own like little neighborhood with little houses. And that neighborhood was really on the fence. And so most of the young people were either abducted or killed, and not a lot of survivors from that neighborhood. And so these 4 are hopefully still there alive, and we need them back. This is Emily and this is Doron. And Keith Siegel is also from Kfar Aza. His brother Lee Siegel is a member of one of our Reform congregations in Kibbutz Gezer, so we know this family really well. He was hostage with his wife. His wife came back, Aviva, and he's still there. And Tzachi and Omri are from Nachal Oz, and they're in their 40s, and they have families and kids. And so you see, this is the father. You can't forget a face like that. He's the father of Omri. These are the hostages of Nachal Oz. The women are back. She's 80-something, and these are just girls, 14 and 8. and they're back, but the two men are still there. And so Omri's father, coming to all the demonstrations possible and talking and telling the story of the family, and many times they ask me to say a prayer on the stage, but many times I just go there to stand right next to him and hold a sign and say nothing, and just to support them and to be with them. And that became a big part of my role, because there are so many demonstrations, 2 or 3 every week. And now the Israeli Reform Movement is having every Friday Kabbalat Shabbat in the Hostages Square, and Havdalah in the Hostages Square, rain or sun or no snow, but every weather and every situation, we're just there, and there are hundreds of people around, and it's just really powerful, and we all feel that our presence, just this supporting presence, is really, really important for the people. And so I'm just, many times I'm just joining their events. So the young generation of Kfar Aza, the survivors, are organizing demonstrations, and it's their events, so I don't have to have the stage, but I'm just standing there with them, and there's this sign saying we can't take another funeral, because you've seen how many they had already, right? And then again, the survivors of the young adult neighborhood are lighting Hanukkah candles in Hanukkah in the Hostages Square. You can't see this, but there are hundreds of people standing around. And I kind of encouraged them to be the ones who light the candles and to talk. They wanted me to talk. I said, no, you talk. You tell the crowd what you've been going through and what happened to your friends. And so it's a lot, like kind of holding them, hugging them, encouraging them to cry out whatever they need to cry out. We don't have time. I don't want to go too much longer, so I'm not going to tell you the whole. This story could hold 2 hours, but just by itself. Okay, this is actually the woman I wanted to bring with me. She's Liora, and she's from Kfar Aza. She lost her son Tal when he was the commander of the civil defense group, and that's Tal's daughter. So it's her granddaughter, and she's 15. Her name is Gali. She became a hero, and there was even a TV show about her. So I took this picture from the frame of that TV program, because what happened is they were staying at the grandmother's house. You get your grandchildren to sleep at your house sometimes, sleep over at grandmother and grandfather, right? So she and another granddaughter from another child, 15 years old, were staying with Savta in her safe room for 36 hours. And it took a long time for the army to get to the kibbutz, but when the army came and they actually checked her house, apparently they learned to know that the army doesn't know the map, doesn't have the map of the kibbutz, and so they don't know where are the wounded people, where are the terrorists. And what happened at the end is that Gali had only her phone miraculously continued working, because there was no electricity to charge your phone and there was no receivers, but somehow her phone worked, and she started guiding the soldiers, 15 years old, because she was in the WhatsApp group of the kibbutz. So she took up a Google map, she showed them, this is the house of this family, this is how to go there, wounded people over there, terrorists over there. She kind of guided the soldiers where to go, and she became a huge hero. Didn't even mean to be a hero, but can you imagine how meaningful? And she saved probably many, many lives by doing that. And so that's just a story of one family. There's so many like these, okay? And then Liora, I called her one day saying, I thought she was in where they're evacuated in Shfaim. I said, Liora, can I come visit you in Shfaim? Because also she was mourning over her son. And she said, I thought of going to Kfar Aza, back to the kibbutz for the first time to see what happened to her house. She knew her house was completely destroyed because there were terrorists hiding in another room. So the army kind of bombed her house to get rid of them. And so nothing was left of it. And immediately I found myself saying, can I come with you, Liora? And she thought a little bit and said, yeah, come with me. And so I was driving her. Later on, it became kind of another part of my role, which nothing prepared me for, to kind of escort people to the ruined houses. And so we go, and this is what her house looked like from the outside, and this is what it looks like from the inside. I've been to that house many times, because she kind of invited me to eat at her house or sleep there if I needed. I actually slept in that safe room, which was her guest room. So and it was a beautiful house, and that's how it looked when we drove there. And she picked fruits from the trees in her garden, and she started collecting things that survived somehow. And this is Liora, and this is apparently the room where all her books were. She had many books, and I encouraged her to kind of collect the ones that are not completely burnt or wet and take them with her, because you see some survived on the shelves. And then I started taking picture of the books in the ruins. What does it say there? Can you read, any of you? It says Shema Israel on the book. And this book, it's a Benjamin Ze'ev Herzl book that is called the Jewish State, Medinat HaYehudim. So it was just lying there on the ruins. And see the one on the left, If This Is a Man by Primo Levi. I don't know if you read this book, but it's like, this is it. This is like completely the whole environment. And then she took me to see the armory, where already the kibbutz have put up the sign about the heroes that defending the kibbutz and lost their lives. And the mayor is one of them, and here's Lior's son is over there. And then she took me to see this. I couldn't get rid of these images in my mind for days. I told you about the young people neighborhood, so it looks like that. And then they put the signs on the houses to marking what happened. And Nitzan Lipstein is the son of the mayor. So his wife, Ophir's wife, lost her mother and her husband and one of her sons as well. I'm skipping some of it, okay? And then I want to wrap this presentation in a question, okay, that I think we need to start addressing, and is really, from now on, can we continue to live believing what we believed before? Many of the residents of this area, you know what, I am going to go back for a second to this. I skipped it before, but I want to show you. So in Lior's house, when we were walking around collecting things, I noticed this shelf that somehow survived all the shooting and bombing that were in a house. And there's this wine bottle, and there's a cover of a DVD, like a documentary film. You know DVD? Yeah, it still exists, right? And it's a documentary film called Two-Sided Story. And there's a Palestinian and an Israeli. So it's about this organization that was doing dialogues between Israelis and Palestinians. It's like documenting those meetings that they would be talking to each other. Really, really moving and hard. I've seen this film. And so I see the film on the shelf right there to indicate that Lior and many other people in the area were people who believed in peace, who believed in dialogue, who wanted to know the neighbors or the others, and some of them really peace activists. We've been meeting in demonstrations before October 7th for 9 months, for democracy, which we felt was endangered by the current government, and we were demonstrating, we want a better leadership and all of that. And so can we still believe in that? Can we still hold on to our values, which I see as Jewish values, of believing in peace and reconciliation? And so now I'm going to ask somebody who reads English better than I do, maybe you can help me, to read this. Yes, can you?
It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet, I cling to them because I still believe, despite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into a wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return.
So, as I told you at the beginning, the first few months I was really doing just a lot of listening and consulting and officiating Kabbalot Shabbat. But I wasn't talking about what do we hope for, because it was really hard for people to talk about hopes. But at some point I felt that it's a part of my role, actually, to encourage this discourse of what do we hope for. And of course, while still grieving and while still mourning and hurting and being broken, at the same time, I think and I feel and I believe that it's really important for us to look to the future and try as hard as we can. It's really hard sometimes. But if she can do it at her young age, and maybe we can look up to the sky or look forward to the future and really imagine, really picture a better future in Israel for all the people living in the area. And it began to be important to me to bring this message to my congregants. Some of them wouldn't agree, or it will be hard for them to accept. They can't talk about hope or peace right now, it's too much. But for others, I see how important it is, because they do want to continue believing in what they believed before, in humanity, in justice, in equality, in peace, all our progressive values that we share. I believe that we all share those values, and we operate and we live and we act to promote these values in our lives and in our neighborhoods. And so for some people it was really meaningful that we sing those hope and peace songs, even if it's hard, and like to encourage each other that let's not give it up. And I'm also telling you, don't give up on us, because there's so many people in Israel who are not willing to give up, who are not, we worked so hard to have this homeland for you and for us together. This is a shared homeland that we have in Israel. And we don't want to we don't want to lose it. We don't want to give it up. And we have to picture a better future than what we had in the past and what we have in the present. Out of this terrible crisis, must come some recovery and some correction and some tikkun and some fixing of all the things that broke. I really, really believe in it in my heart, and I really try to have at least this conversation with my congregants. And I, at some point, also realized that dafka, dafka, what's the word for that? There's no word for that, dafka. So, like, unexpectedly, the Jewish tradition has some comfort to suggest to these people. And so we were given this wonderful gift from the World Union of Progressive Judaism. We got a donation of a Torah scroll, which is really needed. I'm working with this, and it's good to have one. I wanted one even before, but now they donated it, and we made a whole big event. So this full of hundreds of people came to this event where we dedicated the scroll to the memory of Ophir Liebstein and all the other heroes. We had another ceremony after, who died, and their widowers and their mothers and their families would come. And we just had this wonderful, wonderful ceremony. I wasn't sure how, those secular kibbutzniks are going to relate to that, but I was surprised how moving it was for them, because look at this. So this is the family of the mayor of Ophir, and his brothers and sisters, and this is his mother. And you know what? She couldn't let go of that. At some point I told her, we need to put it back in the ark. She wouldn't let go. She held it so close, and she was so moved by the fact that it's dedicated to his memory. And apparently she was really connected. And then another ceremony we had, and this is Vera, this is Ophir's wife, and the other widowers and mothers. And I told them, while you're holding the Torah, say something about the person we're remembering, and also tell us something about life, because the Torah is a symbol of life. It says, Etz Chaim Hi. Do you ever hear that, right? The Torah is it's a tree of life. And so I asked them to say something about the powers of life. These are such strong, brave women. I can't begin to tell you the wonderful things they said, how naturally they held the Torah scroll and connected to it, and tell me after that it was giving them energy and optimism. And so this is how I discover every step of the way how I can help those people. At the beginning, I was just devastated, not knowing what I can do as a rabbi to help them. Along the way, they helped me, they taught me what can help them. Writing poems, praying together, holding the Torah scroll. These are things that just, the connection that I have with them enabled me to suggest, and they were accepting. And I'm not saying this is solving all of the problems. There are such huge challenges ahead of us. They have to rebuild their homes and their communities. They have to decide if they're going back, in what terms, and when, and who, and what. Some of the kibbutzim started going back already in the last few weeks. But the challenges are huge, and the grief is huge. And I'm only like this drop in the ocean of whoever can help them. But it means a lot altogether. And then we continue to have a life cycle event because life goes on. And so for me, the whole Torah thing is a symbol that life goes on. And this is it. We're ending here. We're just telling you that the choice of this girl from Kibbutz Gevim, she's evacuated, she's not in a house. Her bat mitzvah was coming up. These are two mothers that she has, and the mother of one of them was murdered. So they're still mourning. It's very fresh. It's 3 months only. But she decided to go on with her bat mitzvah. I taught her to read Torah. This very secular girl, it's not an obvious choice. And I was so proud of her that she did choose to have the ceremony. And we had it, and we were all crying from different reasons, and it was both a memorial and a simcha at the same time. But you know what? It happened, it took place, and many more after. And so for me, it's a symbol that the people want to go back to life, and they want to hold on to life. And at the end, we'll close this presentation back with a red flower, the little fragile red flower that this year, there was no festival, the Ramadan. All the events were canceled, but one of them left, and that was it's called the Enemy March in the memory of Ophir. And so all these flags, all the areas full on these flags on the left, saying the Ramadan, the Red South, and then it says on the bottom, Porchim Mechadash, reblooming, right? And on the right, some of the kibbutzim hung these signs of the flowers saying, HaNegev, Odiyeh Poreach, the Negev will continue to bloom or rebloom. And I want to end this with this idea and this feeling that if nature can recover every year from the frozen winter, and nature is kind of indifferent to anything that happens to us, and it keeps blooming again, maybe we can get inspiration from that and believe that we are going to bloom again, although we are in terrible, terrible crisis right now in Israel, and things are really bad and hard. But in order to go on and live there, I at least feel I have to have this hope and this belief, and some of the people are with me. And I want to tell you, first of all, thank you for surviving this not easy presentation and listening. And thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your support. You can't start to understand how meaningful this is to the work my colleagues and I are doing, knowing that you support us and you're our friends. And I'll even tell you more than that. I see you as partners. I think we have a lot to fix in Israel. I think the brokenness is terrible and very deep. But again, we're not giving up, and there's some really brave people in Israel that are willing to fight in order to bring it back to be Haaretz HaTova. Hashiveni ve'ashuva el haaretz HaTova. Return me to the good place, the good land. We must have Israel as our beloved Jewish and democratic state, and our homeland is shared. It's a shared property that we have. You are with us on it, and so I want to encourage you not just to support our work, which I know you are, but also to understand that there is a struggle going on now between different forces in Israel, and if you progressive Jews support the opposition, progressive parts of Israel who want a democratic Jewish state that will be a homeland for all of us, this is where you should put your hearts and your efforts into. And it means a lot to us, this partnership. Really, really, really. We need this help. It sometimes feels like we can't do it alone, really. And so, again, thank you. If you have some remarks or questions, I think we can have a few moments of, please tell me whatever you think, and I'm open to any question. Don't worry, I'm a tough Israeli. I can handle it. Yeah, we have another mic here, right? Yeah. We had... Any questions, remarks, dreams, hopes, whatever you want to share with us, please say your name. Yeah.
I just have a very simple
This is
question.
Helen, if you don't know. Yeah,
Helen
I know
Sharp.
Helen. We're best friends already. Yeah.
Tell us why the Israeli army was not there in Shah Negev.
Painful question. Everybody's wondering what happened to the army. How come it took them so many hours to react to that attack? How come airplanes were not in the air after half an hour? How come it took them 6 hours to go into Kfar Aza or Nachal Oz? Some of the army was then there, but very small units. The Hamas actually attacked the bases that are on the border. They knew exactly, they had all the information. They attacked the ones who were sitting on the fence watching out. So they were not there to watch out. But then when the attack was already known, the army was not enough over there. And we know that partly because the awful government that we have right now did not prioritize this area. And the residents are really angry and frustrated over understanding and realizing that they were betrayed by their own country and that they were not prioritized, and that the government was sending huge amounts of soldiers and units to the occupied territories to protect settlers building a sukkah in the middle of a Palestinian village. And so it's really, people are really angry at that, understanding that it's not a coincidence that the army wasn't there. It was something that just wasn't given enough attention by the government, and it's terrible. Is that answering your question? Sorry. More things you want to know or things that you're thinking? Yeah, over there. You have these two gentlemen, yeah. Yeah, and after that, we come to you. Don't worry, I see you. Yeah, please speak up. Yeah, 1 minute, we'll get to you. What's your name?
Erev Tov, Yael. I'm Eitan Drori.
Eitan Drori, welcome. Shalom. Shalom.
Nice to meet you. First of all, before everything, your presentation was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. We miss Israelis like you here in Australia to stand up to Palestinian representatives on media. I think that your presentation should be taken as a package to TV channels here in Australia, just to say, first and foremost, togetherness, unity with your neighbors, and especially the tragedy being presented in a soft and very tender way. And I really appreciate it. I live in Australia for 25 years. I'm very much, identified with your efforts via the progressive movement for United Israel Appeal. I was a shaliach here for nearly 6 years, one of the long-serving. And the question for me is, and Helen is always there to push me, so the question for me is, and you've mentioned it along your presentation, is the over 200,000 Israelis who are away from home at the moment. The idea, the Zionist idea of settling, Helen just asked me, what is Eshkol? And I said it's the name of our former late Prime Minister Levi Eshkol, who in a way settled your settlements there. And the tough question is, and I hear many of the residents saying, we're not back. How can you bring your congregations back? How can you bring the people who gave their life for this region and live there with such courage? Thank you.
How will Vered, the wife of Ophir that lost her husband and son and mother, can go back to live in her house in Kfar Aza, looking around, seeing again and again, like re-experiencing the trauma and all the neighbors' houses that are not there already. These are tough questions they are asking. Look, some of the kibbutzim was saved in a way that they didn't have the terrorists come in, so they suffered rocket attacks, but they were all saved. They sometimes fought, or they were having a battle with the terrorists outside the kibbutz or on the fence, but they didn't come in and broke into the houses like they did in Nachal Oz and Kfar Aza. And so 8 out of those 10 kibbutzim are eventually going to go back. Some of them are already back, the ones that are further from the fence. It's really a question about these 2 kibbutzim and in other region, other kibbutzim who were really destroyed. And it will take a long time they didn't even start clearing all the ruins, right? So there's a lot of work to be done on the physical level, and there's also a lot of work to be done on the ideological, emotional, spiritual level of how can we even go back. There are discussions in the kibbutzim about this. Of course, the agriculture, by the way, is immediately recovered. So after a week or 2, they already sent some people to work there, sometimes soldiers, sometimes volunteers, sometimes some brave people from the kibbutz who decided to go back because they want to milk the cows, and they still have the dairy working in some of the kibbutzim, and they're growing the wheat. They didn't stop, okay? So these people are resilient, strong, and brave, and I do believe that they will go back. They started going back. But these discussions are kind of touring the communities right now because, the seniors never left their houses, and it's the first time they were forced to leave. They weren't allowed to stay, and they want to go back. The families with young children are more hesitating because how can you leave your child in the kindergarten in that kibbutz and feel safe enough to go to work? So you understand they're going through really hard discussions and process like this. And it's a good question if you meet the residents themselves and you would ask them what needs to happen in order for you to come back. What are the terms that you would feel safe enough? Again, the trust that they had in the contract with the state was broken at that horrible Shabbat. They say, we used to think we have this contract with the state. We sit on the border, we work the land until the last centimeter of possible, and you, the state, is protecting us, and you doing everything you can to protect us. And that broke. That whole conception that we are protected has broke. A lot of people say, we can't ignore, this whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict anymore because it blows up in our faces every time. Again, how many wars and how many operations like that do we have already? Every year, 2, there's an operation, right? And then the government says, we got rid of them, and then it comes back again. So people are starting to realize that this is no solution, and no military solution is going to end up this problem. So there's got to be a political solution, and it's not going to be easy, and it's challenging. But I think more and more Israelis are demanding now that let's put on the table, let's start a discourse about the day after, because our government is refusing to discuss the day after with us. So we have leaders who are leading us, we don't know where. So let's say you killed the last of Hamasnik, which is not possible, okay? But let's fantasize, we found all few thousands of them and we got rid of them. Now what? Now what? Okay? What are your vision and plans for that area? What are you going to do with the residents that are left that are not Hamas? Because most of them are not. What do you want? What do you plan ahead with the Palestinian Authority and the West Bank and these people over there? And no answer. No answer. The government is just refusing to discuss this. And so I think, first of all, bring them back. Put every pressure you can, because this is first priority. But right after that, okay, we must demand a discussion about the day after. I'm not saying that all of us have to agree upon the same solution. I have my ideas, doesn't make me right, you don't have to agree with me, okay? But let's talk about solutions, because we finally have to resolve this problem. And the only thing that could really, I don't want to say it's not justifying in any way, but something good comes out of this crisis, then we see a reason that it had to happen, because we cannot ignore our problems anymore. It's like you have a wound and you're neglecting it, and it keeps on bringing out all these, infection. And that's what we have, a wound, and it keeps infecting our lives, and we're not treating it right. And then every time again. So again, you don't have to agree with me, so you can argue with me. My personal belief, and I think most of the progressive, population in Israel would tell you, we must start talking about the day after. We must think of solutions. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, the woman over there. What's your name?
My name's Golda Shulkers.
Wait, talk to the mic so we hear you.
You don't turn it on?
No? You want to take this one? Not working? Yeah? It sounds like it works. Yeah, try. Yeah, it's working. Tell us your name again so we can hear it.
Thank you, Rabbi. What a delightful talk. My name's Golda Shulkers. I've been raising money for Israel last year in the emergency campaign for JNF. And recently, in the last 3.5 weeks, I've been raising a lot of money for Israel, particularly for hostages, for those suffering. My question is, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in Melbourne towards Jews. But Jews are a family. We unite and we stick together. Mm-hmm. What more can we do to help Israel, to save the hostages, and to save ourselves from this tragedy, which not only is occurring in Melbourne, but is also worse in Israel?
Well, it's tough. I can't tell you what to do because you experience here something that I don't experience. I do understand, and I heard from many of you that I have spoken to, that this is affecting you tragically, and you are severely affected by this event. And I really think that what I've just said before is the answer to this. I think that right now, the terrible leadership that both us and the Palestinian people have, we both have the most extreme, fundamental leaders that don't reflect the real of most of the people, and just want to continue to control. And I think that both of the sides of that fence need to get rid of this leadership and demand a better leadership. And I think that a lot of the troubles that you have here is indeed because of very unresponsible acts of the leadership. And so for you, I think maybe, just to say we are supporting Israel by understanding that it needs a new leadership, okay? I think that today supporting Israel means demanding a new, better leadership to keep this country going on a better route. So, yeah, so criticizing doesn't mean you don't love Israel. I think loving Israel is now really saying...
Every Jew loves Israel and wants to be there, but because of circumstances, they can't limit it because they can't leave their family, etc. But every Jew is mourning their families in Israel, is waiting attentively at the radios, listening to see what is going to happen. Every Jew feels for Israel, and every Jew wants to go further.
So
help in any way possible.
Thank you very much. It's extraordinary because you've been talking for nearly 2 hours. So I don't think we can do this for very much longer. I'd like to call on the president of Progressive Judaism, Victoria, to give you a vote of thanks and to do the spiel.
Thank you very much, Yael. It's a moment of speechlessness, really, after listening to you. And I had the great pleasure of listening to you last night and then having lunch with a number of us and having the conversation. And one of the questions that came up was, well, how do you begin that conversation? And your presentation is all heart, and you are all in, and we have to all be all in as well. And I think your positivity is well, it's the light. It's the light and the love inside of you, and supporting Israel and in all the ways that we can is what we need to do. So I really can't say anything more except please tonight to pick up a pledge card and give generously and support the effort that you're putting in and that all of us want to do, and to you too, you know, what you were saying.
Really, really thankful. Your support enabling this amazing, optimism
Yeah.
to spread and to have a lot of people have the energy to really struggle and go through that terrible period to a better time. So this is what you enable us to do. Exactly.
If Anne Frank could do it at 15. Oh, yeah. Here we go. And you can we'll pass these around. You can scan and do it easily. And we need to be the light. I'm going to take them. You can do the next bit.
All right, so Rabbi, I want to say, I wrote about what you said last night because I heard you speak last night. I want to say something that just, I looked everywhere today to find a red poppy, because I don't know what an anemone, I can't even say it either, and I was, I looked, but it's out of season, and I wanted to pass that on to you because I was inspired by your story. But I want to say, Rashi talks about there's no such thing as a superfluous word in the Torah. Like everything you say. I don't know if you realize that the first half of your talk, the amount of times you used the word love was a lot. And the amount of times I love this person, I love, and the joy, and even talking about that, your framework of everything is through love and joy. And I left your talk last night, I came home and I told my husband, I don't know if any of you have seen the book, or if you've seen the book from Yad Vashem called Through Our Eyes. Have you ever heard the book, Through Our Eyes? It's a book written for children about the Shoah. And it reminds me of your talk, because it was framed by what happened before, and then it talks about the horrors, and then it talks about moving forward and afterwards. And that's what you did. And throughout all of this, you give us a sense of hope when we feel lost and we don't know what to do. And you model just, and you model just listening, holding, and hearing, and I appreciate that. And one of the stories you said when you were speaking to the rabbis is that there was a woman who came here to Sydney, to Australia, and came back and was exposed to the progressive movement for the first time, and came back to Australia, and back to Israel, and basically started the progressive movement in Sharon Negev.
She was here for 2 years, about 15 years ago. She promised a rabbi at that time at Sydney that when she goes back to Israel to make sure that there will be a Reform congregation in her area, going to the Negev, not finding any of it, so she said, let's found it. And with other residents, they actually founded this.
Which is amazing.
To Australia.
And it's kavod to the partnership. You talk about the sense of partnership. So on behalf of TBI and the whole progressive movement, I would like to give you something from here to take back. A story about the windows and about something that can touch you in terms of bringing it back to your community, to show from our heart to yours. As much as you give us hope, I hope we can give you hope. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Don't leave. There's refreshments, cakes galore. Come through, chat, speak to the rabbi, speak to the president of Temple Beth Israel and the president of Temple Beth Israel, and welcome through the doors. So if the president wants to open the doors, we will go through. Thank you very much. Oh.